everyone. Hello. We are moving on in the book of Ruth. Ruth chapter 2. I've entitled this God Meets Your Needs. There's a new character that comes into the story that we meet called Boaz. He's going to be a very important figure uh, that we're going to move on to. Just some words. Some uh, Hebrew words that are kind of put in there. One is Mayada, and this is a person you know well with regard, with affection and trust. There's also you, the usage of Gabor, which is someone mighty, warrior, wealth. It's used in reference of Boaz. It was so. So Boaz is a person who has some wealth. Um, this new aspect of gleaning, it means to collect, pick, or gather leftover produce after the harvest has already been gathered. Next, this idea of a kinsman redeemer uh, denotes the near relative who is responsible for the economic well-being of a relative, and he comes into play especially when the relative is in distress and cannot uh, help themselves out of a crisis. To ensure that that the hereditary property of the clan never passes out of that clan. We have this idea, this cultural concept called gleaning, and gleaning basically that the reaper grasped a handful of grain, a handful of standing grain with one hand, and that they would cut it with the sickle in the other. So it's almost as they're grabbing it, and they would cut it. This handful of cut grain was laid on the ground behind him. So they would cut it, and then that they would put it behind them. And these handfuls were in turn gathered into bundles by the bundler who fills their arms. These bundles were probably then bound into sheaves, although it is also possible that the bundles and sheaves are synonymous. The ordinary privilege of the gleaning required that the gleaners work only in that part of the field in which the work of the harvesting described above has been completed, and the sheaves removed to the threshing floor. That the threshing floor is a whole another place. Most most probably, this is what is implied by the expression to glean behind someone, follow behind the women workers, a rite of gleanage that far exceeds anything accorded by the custom of the native Bethlehem, Bethlehem, Bethlehemites. Next is this idea of reaping. Reaping is a process in modern villages of the Middle East, probably illustrated well that the methods during the biblical period. The harvesters would draw a handful of grain stalks together with their sickle, so they'd grab it. Grab the stalks in the other hand and cut them with the sickle. so that the handful of grain would drop and picked up by the others who were gathered into sheaves for transportation to the threshing floor. In biblical times, gleaning took place after the removal of the sheaves. Reaping occurred when the grain harvest was ripe, usually in May for barley, June and July for wheat. Um, rereading Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband, a worldly man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go into the field and glean among the ears of the grain after him, in whose sight I shall find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. So she set out and went. So she set out and went out and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened, this is again God's providence here. So the first instance of the providence was when her sons died. The next instance of God's providence is that she is now gleans in Boaz's land. And she happened to come on part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was the clan of Elimelech. It just so happens that Boaz is of the same clan of Naomi's husband. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered, the Lord bless you. Then Boaz said to this young man who was in the charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? And then the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, she is the young Moabite who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she has continued from the early morning until now, except for a short rest. The first thing that we see is Boaz is introduced, and Ruth seeks a field. Verse 1 introduces a new character in the story. His name is Boaz. His name means pillar. The word for relative occurs 6 times. Every time it's used, it speaks of someone you know very well. So someone that they know very well. Rabbis suggest that he is Elimelech's nephew and Naomi's cousin. Boaz is referred to as a worthy man. Word worthy here is the Hebrew word gibor, often translated as warrior, but it's also speaking of someone of wealth and ability. It designates one who possesses social standing and a good reputation. In this context, it connotes not only wealth and status, but also ability, honor, and the capability. Thus, it is clearly used as a description of character. Boaz is the right man, not only because he has the ability, but he comes from the right clan. But he is also the right man because he is a man of integrity and will do right by Naomi and Ruth. Verse 2 picks up on the story of particularly Ruth seeking to provide for Naomi and contribute to the household. Ruth's Moabite origins are picked up again in what would be a dominant theme of the book. Ruth is often referred to as a Moabite. She is an outsider. She is a stranger, and the book really highlights this. Of the seven times, it's used, 5 times it is specifically identified to Ruth in the phrase Ruth the Moabite. Ruth politely requests Naomi's permission to glean the fields. Ruth feels that she is under her authority and guidance. She says, "Let me go," and it is often used for a polite request, much like we would say "please." After him is inserted by the translators. Many translators do not have it. For example, in the NASB, it says, "One in whose sight I might find favor." The NIV, "Anyone in whose eyes I might find favor." The NLT, "By anyone who's kind enough to let me to do it." So, and Naomi grants her request. Next that we see in verse 3 is that Ruth stumbles onto the field. Gleaning is an emphasis in this chapter. It occurs 12 times in this chapter. Gleaning was the process of gathering the leftover produce after a harvest has already been gathered. Gleaning was a process instituted by God so that the poor would have an opportunity to provide for themselves. Deuteronomy 24:19, where it says, "When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, the widow, and the Lord, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands." The phrase "she happened to come to Boaz's field" is God's providential working in her life. Of not just her, but Naomi and all of Israel, Ruth and all of Israel. God's providentially working of the lives very rarely just benefits us, but it also benefits the wider scope of people and his redemptive purposes. It's not just for Ruth's sake that she stumbles on the land, but God providentially puts her in Boaz, so that she's not only taken care of, but and also Ruth is taken care of as well, and Naomi is taken care of as well. Much like the providential working of Esther in Esther chapter 6, verse 1, when the king couldn't sleep, he just happened to ask for the chronicles. He just happened. Next we see Boaz notices Ruth in verses 4 through 7. The author here uses a very distinct construction. A hint of amazement or wonder. Look, this idea. Look, it's Boaz. A passage is linked with so many inferences to providence. The reader is left without a doubt that God is working behind the scenes. In verse 2, "In whose sight I might find favor." Verse 3, "Happened to come on the field." This is God's providence. We're working. God working things out. Much like God provided for the ram as a sacrifice of Isaac in Genesis 22:13, he's cut in the thick of a bush. God is providing for Ruth and Naomi every step of the way. God is orchestrating events so that Ruth will meet the right person for her, and she is the right person for Boaz. We see Boaz is a godly man. By the way he is approaching his worker, he notices Ruth, inquires about her. The last phrase is really I am incoherent in the Hebrew, um, almost as if the former didn't know if he should have left had her in. There are far too many coincidences for this to be not God. She stumbles on the field of Boaz. The foreman allows her to reap on the field. Boaz notices her with favor. Boaz is a man of integrity, very uncommon in the time of Judges. Ruth fits the requirements for Boaz to be her kinsman, her redeemer. There's a variety of possible interpretations for verse 7. And I'm just going to highlight these. First is that she asked for permission to glean, but was told no, she had to wait. Another was that she was actually gleaning, which had been a huge break in a cultural norms. Third is that she was asked to glean and was told to wait for the owner of the field. So all these are the various things that are going on um, with um, Ruth and Boaz in this passage. I hope that you enjoy it. Look at I really encourage you to look at the Bible study and just answer the questions for yourself. You have a wonderful day.